Welcome to Let's Talk Immigration, where we discuss all the weekly happenings in U.S. immigration. This week we have 5 stories we're going to relate. They are the Build Back Better bill, which recently passed Congress and is heading to the Senate. We're also going to talk about an increase in USCIS fees. There's been some announcements on that front. Also, we'll mention the settlement that USCIS is discussing for separated families at the border, one of the problems we had in the last few years. We'll also hit up a story about the enforcement protection areas, the safe havens for deportation. And finally, we'll hit a couple of questions that you guys have for us. So let's go. Let's talk immigration. All right, the first thing today is the Build Back Better bill. Now, this is a bill that the House Democrats put together as an infrastructure package. Now, clearly, it's mostly about infrastructure. Infrastructure means bridges, highways, all the internal infrastructure that our country needs to survive and keep going. Well, they're talking about upgrading that. That's really great. Now, as you all know, if you follow immigration at all, there's always a chance that immigration programs will be tucked into a larger bill because they're trying to get it passed. So right now, what we're seeing with the Build Back Better is we're seeing the 2 programs being pushed in. Generally, the recapture of green cards, okay? That is one of the ideas that's been floating around of getting green cards that have been lost. So for example, we lost 80,000 green cards in October. Recapturing those green cards and adding them to the entire green card process. And on top of that, we're seeing the ending of any kind of country conditions or country caps. So this is kind of a little more vague, but essentially it's a provision that would last for 10 years that would allow the country-specific provisions to be ended. It's a direct fix for individuals from India and China who have a very long, long wait. What's going to happen is Build Back Better goes to the Senate, and as you know, the Senate parliamentarian, this obscure figure, has the right to decide what goes in a bill or not. And right now, all we know is that the progressive side of the Democratic Party is pushing for that the Senate parliamentarian to be overruled, okay? Because it's highly likely, and they believe, and we have seen, that the Senate parliamentarian is going to say that certain things cannot go into this bill, including certain immigration provisions. So, Build Back Better, it's heading to the Senate. We're going to see what happens over there. Parliamentarians going to be involved, but there's a chance a couple of very strong immigration provisions can be included. We'll update you here when we know more. All right, recently USCIS has announced that they'll be increasing fees. Now, increasing fees can be crazy. This has been packaged as an increase of fees to the H1B program. Now, if you know the H1B program, it has the highest amount of fees. It can easily cost $2,500 in fees to the U.S. government for a bare filing. If you add premium to that, it's a $5,000 fee that you might be paying to immigration. So what's happened is they've come up with a couple new changes, and they're looking at adding fees to all sorts of different cases. I'm going to go through the list really quickly just to give you guys an idea of what we're talking about. So we're talking about $500 to the H1B process. We're talking to $100 to any family case. Any green card based upon employment, an $800 fee is going to be added. For the investment visa, they're adding a $15,000 fee. And for a new green card, an additional $500 fee. All petitions on the I-129 are going to have a new fee. That means if you're an E, an L, an O, you're going to have that. An additional $500 for extension of status. People who have been stuck here during the pandemic have to pay a fee of, I think it was $250 or $320. They're going to add $500 to that. So it looks like USCIS is going into fees. These fee changes will probably happen in the next 6 to 9 months. There's usually a big announcement when they do that. But it's kind of a heads up. If you're out there and you're filing a case soon, get it filed now. Fee increases in immigration have been going on for the last 10 years, and we're seeing massive, massive fee increases. So we see these ones coming through probably next year. All right, DHS did announce something pretty different, and it's a whole different tone change from what they had in the past. They've announced a change to the family separation process. In fact, there are lawsuits that are going through the system right now where individuals who were separated from their family for long periods of time, and those children were damaged because they lived in foster care or believed their parents had abandoned them, they've sued the government. And Department of Justice had noted, Department of Justice said this, not DHS, that they're going to be settling these cases. If you do have a case like that, you should talk to your lawyer about getting a settlement, because this is a very specific thing that applies to specific families who suffered under that program. All right, So we also have some updates from Homeland Security about safe havens. Now, I made that word up, but essentially what's happened in the last 5+ years is that individuals who were living here illegally or were an overstay or had a violation, they were generally free to live their lives. They can go to court, they can go to hospital, they can go to family events, and they would be okay. During the last few years, the sort of the restraints came off, and you saw ICE showing up at family functions, at graduation ceremonies, at court, where people are getting their traffic fine paid off, and they would arrest people who were doing traffic fines. So what's happened is immigration has always had a policy, which is they know people are here illegally, and they do want to go ahead and get them and put them through a process of deportation, but they also want those individuals to be able to participate in the whole system in the United States. And the best example ever, and I tell this to all of my clients, is that IRS routinely accepts 5-10 million tax filings a year, okay, more, from individuals who are either illegal or an overstay or have an immigration violation. And the IRS policy has always been, you pay your taxes, we're never sending your information to immigration. It's not in our interest to take a taxpayer and then go report them so they can get deported. So the policy that IRS had was, our mission at IRS is to collect taxes from individuals who work in the United States, and we want to continue to do that. We don't want to hinder that. Now, what ICE has done, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is they've kind of spread their wings, right? There was a provision in the law that allowed them to make relationships with law enforcement in different counties, and they spread beyond that. They would attend hearing dates at courts and other things to try to arrest individuals. And what happened, we saw the feedback, it was all through the news. Judges were unhappy because people were not showing up to pay their fines or for their simple hearing, and it causes a backlog, right? The judge then increases the fine, or they get a bench warrant, and the situation gets worse. Judges recognize that they want individuals to come to court and take care of their legal obligations. It could be even child custody. People are afraid to go. So immigration has turned itself around a little bit, examined some of these complaints, and examined some of the long-standing policies like the IRS had for many, many years, and basically said, hey, you know what, we're not doing this anymore. If you're going to be going and doing things that are important, such as going to court, going to the hospital, okay, going to take care of any kind of administrative thing at any kind of government building. If you had a wedding or a funeral, we're not going to have ICE show up and arrest people there. Now, they might have information because they've done a whole bunch to kind of expand their information gathering sector. ICE did that in the last 5 years through some specific programs, one being a license plate program that they used to capture license plates at airports and other places. They might have information, but they've reduced the locations where they will arrest people. So that includes schools, that includes hospitals, and child care facilities, and daycare facilities, all sorts of other school-related activities will be off limits. Now, once again, what we're looking at here is a return to a policy that immigration has always had, which is that you have to live a life here. You have to do some things. We will encounter you and we will deport you through a normal process, but we're not going to chase people around so that we have these kind of problems and difficulties that end up developing over time. So I'm happy with this one. I think it's a great change. USCIS really needs to make some of these changes, and it needs to build some of these into their system as a law, not just a policy that changes every time we get a new president. All right. We've got a couple of questions. Let me hit those off for you guys and help you out with our question and answer segment. So we've got, can a green card holder apply for an adopted child? All right, really simple here. Green card holders are legal permanent residents or permanent residents. And a permanent resident can always apply for a child, be they adopted or natural, at any time. The adoption adds one element. The child must be adopted under the age of 16. Okay? The adoption must be completed and done before the child turns 16. Now, if you've done an adoption case, you know there's a residency requirement, there's a whole bunch of other things. The key here for a filing under immigration law is that child is legally yours as soon as the adoption is complete, and that must be done before the age of 16, okay? And there are some sibling exceptions where if you have a sibling of another individual that you're adopting, if before they're 18, that's fine. But talk to your lawyer about that one to make sure you're following the timelines to get that one right. All right. We've got one more question from, well, hey there, something. Okay, the question is, can you talk about the TN visa Canadians? What do they require from their employer? Okay, great question. The TN visa is a work visa for individuals from Canada or individuals from Mexico. It comes from the NAFTA treaty signed by Clinton over 25 years ago. And essentially, there's a TN job list. If you're within one of those professions and you have a degree, you can generally get a job and then work in the United States. An employer is going to have to present evidence of an actual TN job, evidence of the ability to sort of pay that wage, and evidence that this is going to be a full-time job in the United States. It doesn't require travel or working outside the United States or anything of that sort. They're trying to show essentially that it's a high-skilled worker, that's the key, and there's a job in the United States. The TN process in Canada is very different than in Mexico. In Mexico, you have to file the case, go to an interview at the consulate, then do another interview at the border, where then you're let in. Canadians can do their interview right at the border. And what we typically do for our Canadians is we make them what's called an employer package. An employer package would be an explanation of the job, an explanation of the salary, and what you're going to be doing, along with any documents that show you qualify. So if somebody has a long work history and they got letters and a resume, or if they've got education documents, other things like that, you need to show that you actually qualify. So the main thing that a TN visa needs to show is, number one, a TN employer, a U.S. company, and what you're going to be doing there. And then the second part is what you are and how you qualify for that job. So that is it for a TN case. They're great visas, easy to get. And if you've got any questions with them, give us a call. We'd love to help you guys out. That's it for today's Let's Talk Immigration. If you have something else or a question, please put it in the chat down below. You want to chat with us, you can always send us an email, give us a phone call, get an appointment with me. Otherwise, stay safe out there. Take care.